What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr Wargames, and today I am bringing an update to the Despia Doll Dogmatica profile. Now this is obviously going full power, building off the back of the budget versions that I showed you, and hopefully getting you into position ready for the Aluba reprints. I was going to bring you Branded Brave as well, so if you do want to see that particular profile, then let me know in the comments below and smash that like button. Getting it above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, and I will bring that version to you as well. With all of that out of the way, let's dive head first into the Branded Doll Dogmatica deck. So BDD, I suppose is the best way of doing it. Anyway, with the branded engine, or the Despia engine, triple Aluba, pretty straightforward and simple on this one. It is your main normal summon of the deck. Obviously, if you wanted to go the Invoked route, Invoked would then put in place of this. But the whole idea of this is that you're going to focus on fusion summoning. Double Albaz. Now, I've seen a lot of people asking around about 1 and 2. I've tried it at 1. It's not the end of the world because there's not really anything your opponent can do, bar completely taking Lubellion out of the game, that really stops this being banished. Like, if they banish this, you go, cool, Lubellion. If they pop Lubellion, you're still going to spin stuff back. So, the only time that it really hurts losing it is if your opponent, like, imperms Albaz, and you kind of lose it from there. So, there's definitely stuff you need to kind of consider when doing so, if you were to cut it to 1, but I feel 2 you kind of need it at. 2 Tragedy, 1 Comedy. I really like Comedy. The fact that it just tributes a fusion monster is what makes it so good. So if at any point your opponent tries to target any of your fusion monsters, you can tag them out and still get the effects. And then when you're looking at stuff like tagging out Construct, that's really good because, again, it lets you dodge like the imperms or veilers on the Foolish Burial. The one Adlerbyton, you know, I've shown this in all of the Despia versions. It's such a good card. Brandon of Red, use this, brings back any of, I think it's specifically level 8 or higher, which is completely fine. So it can bring back Construct if you want it to, but the idea is you're probably going to be bringing back Mirror Jade. Then, of course, Destiny Hero Package, Light Hexil. This is just so, again, to play the techs in the extra deck of the Tyrant Dragon and Dragoon. If you don't have either of those, you can easily cut the Light Hexil. It's entirely up to you. And then I've got a 6-card hand trap lineup of double Bell, double Morna, and double Ash. Morna actually puts in a lot of work for me. I quite like that. There is a way where the idea is that Construct will then still do damage. So, for example, if your opponent special summons DPE, which it does happen, so they special summon DPE during your turn coming back in the standby phase, you can drop Ghost Mourner. At that point, it then forces them to either leave DPE on the board, or they're going to need to use DPE. Now, obviously, if they use DPE then and there, then nothing's going to happen. But if you Ghost Mourner them and turn it off, or for example, if they do it on a Guardian Chimera or anything like that, what you then do is you then go into Construct. Construct then punches it in the face because of its own effect to destroy a special summon monster, and then they'll take the burn damage of its attack. So technically, Construct will always, in theory, sometimes increase in attack, which is really nice. So that's it for the hand traps and, of course, the Despias. Moving on to the Domaticas and Dolls, and then I'll show you all of the branded spells. So for the Dogmaticas, I've kind of minimised this where at all possible. We've got the 1 Maximus, the 1 Fleur, and the 1 Ecclesia. Now, the reason I've gone this route is because I'm not actually playing Punishment. Because both, or everything in the deck wants to fusion summon from the extra deck, it'd be very silly to play Punishment and then not be able to summon the next turn. Like, that would really cause an issue. Maximus is a little bit risky because of the amount of decks that are running around here that do use their extra deck or do get effects from the trigger of the extra deck. Like, the last thing you want to do is let them send an Albion because then they just search out a branded fusion for free. So you need to be very careful when using this, and I would honestly take it out in a Despia matchup at any point. But what makes Maximus so good is it can start triggering Shaddolls. It lets you recycle your own stuff, and it lets you kind of get back to where you need to. It also helps you trigger Albion as well. So it's not the end of the world. It's still a good card. If you wanted to, you can cut it down. 9 out of 10, you're probably going to go for Fleur if you've already got the Schism play set up. Continue on with, of course, the Dogmaticas. We do play the 2 Nadir. You could play Punishment if you wanted to, but you could also cut the Maximus and play a second Ecclesia. It is entirely up to you. You could also play Titanica in the extra deck, which I'm not playing, just because the extra deck space is so tight right now. For the Dole cards, again, I've kind of kept this at a minimum. So we've gone with the 1 Hedgehog, the 1 Beast, and the 1 Dragon. Hedgehog could be pretty much anything you want. It could be Falco to give you an additional material. I would also highly advise, less so playing Windy, but I would play Aerial as well, whether you main that or side that. It's just such a good card because you can banish Celestial DPE, or you can banish Dasher DPE and then one other card, which is really, really important. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The reason I went with Beast is because Beast is a free draw. The reason I went with Hedgehog is because Hedgehog, if you've got the ability to discard as part of the effect, so Branded Opening, or Fuse using your hand, whether you use the field spell or whether you use Branded in red, it then becomes like an MST or a pop during your turn, so it lets you trigger and choose what you want to search. Now, obviously, for those of you that don't know, the idea is that you activate Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion sends Albaz and then any one of these, and then you can trigger their effect. So quite like Tragedy, if you've already opened up with your Aluba, you can trigger these down. So you've got a back row out, which the deck naturally doesn't have, which is quite nice to have now. Beast is just a random draw, which is pretty cool as well. And then, like I said, Hog searches you either one of these, and the reason you do that is you'll deck thin, and then you'll get the ability to discard. So that is where Aerial can come into play, because Aerial will then be a very good search off of Hog, so that as long as you can trigger Aerial during your opponent's turn, you're going to be able to pretty much triple call by the grave, which is really important. I've then cut down to 2 Shaddoll Fusion and the 1 L Shaddoll Fusion. Now, the reason I've done this is because ideally what you want to do is you want to be going first. You want to be going first. You can activate Nadir's Servant, which is a 1-card power play to Schism, which already straight away sets you up with a window play. And keep in mind as well, the best thing about this is if your opponent summons out DPE, if they trigger to use the effect, you chain Schism, make window, send the DPE, it all fizzles. Alternatively, if they activate the DPE and they know they've got this, they need to trigger DPE to pop this, otherwise you will send their DPE. The best thing is, we also play 2 window, so when this is face up on the field and they're like, that's a dead card, you bait them into activating DPE and then you chain this effect and they'll be like, what? Huh? You're going to do it again? And that's where you bring out a second window and again send. You can also go into Construct, and you can also go into App Clone, so you've got other routes as well that can help send darks and lights, which is really important, and that's where your grave effects of these, or of course your grave effects of any of your light dragons can be important, because keep in mind as well, when Lubellion summons, Lubellion can spin those cards back as well, so you can recycle your materials as much as you need to. And then the final card to synergize between the Shaddolls and the Despias is Foolish Burial. So Foolish Burial, any of these, you get their effects. Foolish Burial, Tragedy, you get free search of Aluba. So you're technically playing like 9 copies of Aluba when you consider Branded Opening. And then you can kind of work off the back of there as well, which is what was really, really nice. If you wanted to put more Dole involvement in, you can do. The reason I went with 2 Fusion and 1 El Shaddoll Fusion, without taking out the camera, is for the pure fact that I'm going to want to be going first. So I don't really want to see these in my hand until turn 2. Like, if I'm going second, I want to see this, but then again, Branded Fusion does the job for me. Like, it sets up everything I need that Shaddoll Fusion usually would do anyway. If you wanted to, this can be a third Shaddoll Fusion, but I quite like the idea of having an El Shaddoll Fusion as well. Considering all of these can be recycled when your Winder, your Construct, or your App Clone go to the graveyard, and App Clone, of course, can search any of these. You've got a lot of consistent features to get you where you need to go. So that's it for the Dole and Domatica packages. Moving on to the general spells and the branded spells. We are playing triple Branded Opening. The best thing about this is that it triggers the Dole cards. Because it doesn't discard as cost and it discards as part of the effect, it will trigger all of the Dole cards that you send as well, which is really, really important, because then, quite like discarding Tragedy off of this, you actually get the ability of either a free random draw off of special summoning Aluba as well, or you get the ability for a free search or a free back row pop. Double Forbidden Droplet. Now, these won't trigger the Doles, but I think it's just such a good card that if you are forced to go second, it gives you that ability to play around with it. If you don't have Droplets, you can try out Talents, you can try out Chalices, and you can also add in Imperms. 2 Fusion Destiny. Insanely good card. Works really, really well. Again, this is just a 1-card power play. Like, you've got so many 1-card power plays. It's mad. So if you're going second, your 1-card power plays are Fusion Destiny, Shaddoll Fusion, Branded Fusion, Nadir Servant. If you're going first, Fusion Destiny, Branded Fusion, Nadir Servant. So like you've got like so many cool power cards that get you so far. It's absolutely insane that even if your opponent stops one of them, you go, cool, I'll do it again. Double Super Poly, again with the dolls. If you do open up any dolls, you can set them, you trigger off a Super Poly, you've then got light and dark targets, which is really great. It's good for the mirror match as well. It's just an insane board breaker, whether you're going first or second. Then, of course, the Mac Daddy of the moment, triple Branded Fusion, not much more needs to be said of that. Double Branded and Red, and then, of course, the one Despia Theatre of Branded. Now, before you guys ask why the heck I'm not playing Branded Lost, I've been going back and forth over like all builds with Branded Lost at this moment in time. And the reason I do this is because I feel that to play Branded Lost and get the most out of it, I kind of feel like I need to play the kit and the Merry Carrier. And in the most recent testing, it's not putting in enough work. Like, my direct go-to is Branded Fusion off a Luba, like, no doubt. And then my second one is usually Branded in Red. So it's rare that I go for Branded in Lost. The reason it's rare to go for Branded in Lost is for the pure fact that I'm chain blocking the majority of my stuff anyway. There are the times when you really want Branded in Lost to be there, because then it means they can't imperm and they can't Veiler your stuff. But that's where comedy comes into play. So yes, it does put in a lot of work. I haven't found the area that I want it to be in as of yet, or the space for it in the main deck as of yet. I'm still playing around with it and trying to find what free cards I would cut for these. At the very least, yes, arguably so, you could just play the Branded Lost, and then by doing so, you just don't get the search off of it, because you don't really want to add Fauna of Albaz unless you plan to normal summon it and then fuse. So you've got to kind of take that into account as well. But maybe you could cut Branded Red down to 1, but even that is something you probably don't want to do, because it's not very easy to recycle it from the grave. So yeah, that's something I'm still looking into and working on, but at current it's just a little bit of a different approach to it. Moving on to the extra deck, of course, the Shaddoll cards. We are playing double Winder. Like I said, I think that a lot of people expect one, so that when you've got a second, it just really, really helps you out. And obviously, Winder control is so, so good, especially in this matchup. Like, apart from your opponent getting into Super Poly, they activate Branded Fusion. That's it. They're Lubellion, they're Albion, they're done. There's nothing they can do. One Construct, one App Cologne. Whether you summon these, whether you're sending these, it still does the exact same job. You've then got 2 Albion, 1 Mirror Jade, and 1 Lubellion. Now, obviously, Lubellion just keeps recycling itself and, of course, the materials. Unless you do, in this particular version, where you go Lubellion and spin back the Shaddoll materials to get you into a Winder, is something to keep in mind. Albion, you've got 1 to summon and use, you've got 1 to send, but then you also have the ability to send both should you want to off of Mirror Jade. And you should know this by now, but obviously the Mirror Jade combo is during your turn, Mirror Jade effect, send Albion, banish a monster you control, set Branded in Red in the end phase, activate Branded in Red, fuse with the Mirror Jade and add Leviathan. Add Leviathan brings the Mirror Jade back and it has its effect refreshed. 2 Masquerade, you can probably cut this to 1 and 1 Quinteris, or 1, and what I really like at the moment is the Proskylion. It's definitely something that I'm playing around with, so it's rare that I play these two, but with Dragon Link Brave becoming back up in popularity, dropping one of these on them, or 2 of them, they lose the game. Flunders, they lose the game, and kind of go from there. 1 Dracus Depelio as your like generic Super Poly target for right now. Dragoon and Blue Eyes Tyrant is completely personal choices. I just like the idea of a card unaffected by trap effects. It can attack all of my opponent's monsters, and it can let me recycle traps, which at the moment the only thing it's going to do is recycle the Schism, but that can actually be really important if they pop it. DPE, and then of course Chimera. So this is what I love about this, is you're playing some of the best fusion monsters in the entire game right now. But it really does come down to personal preference. Like, if you want to have more dolls, you can do. If you don't want the idea of Masquerade Dragon at 2, you can cut it down. If you don't own Chimera or DPE, then straight away that's a 4-card engine that can come out for like a Frightfur, Patchwork, Poly engine, or the Branded Lost engine, and kind of work it around that way. Anyway, I hope this video has kind of given you a couple of ideas for your own particular build, and given you a structure to work off the back of as well. I tried to keep the budget down. Like, at the end of the day, if you've got a Pot of Prosperity, you can put that in there. If you've also got, if you want to play more dolls and less Dogmaticas, if you haven't got Alubas yet, then you just play the Invoked in it, and you can still use the branded Fusion engine. You could also put in more of the kits as well. It is entirely up to you on where you want to take it and how you want to do it. And that's what I really love about branded at this moment in time before it gets boring, is that you can pretty much play it as you see fit and however you want to. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Any questions, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Other than that, have a very good day, stay safe, and of course, above all else, guys, happy dueling.